Hello children. Today we are going to learn history. Our lesson is British power in Sri Lanka. From this lesson we are going to learn about the arrival of British and the economic development under the British. Do you know why did English arrive in Sri Lanka? Let's see what are the reasons. There are three reasons. The first one is the importance of the location of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is an island which is separated from South India. At that time, English had established their power in India. They found Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is located as a separate island from India, but very closer. So Sri Lanka was important in protecting areas in India from other Western nations. So the first importance of the location of Sri Lanka is separate island to the south of India. Next one is it is the center along the eastern and the western trade routes. Sri Lanka is located as a center along the eastern and the western trade routes. The next importance of the location of Sri Lanka is in maintaining the dominance in naval power in the Indian Ocean. The location of Sri Lanka was important to the English not only in ensuring the security of India but also in maintaining dominance in naval power in the Indian Ocean. The next reason for the arrival of the British in Sri Lanka was the importance of the Trincomalee harbour. Why is it important? Because it is a natural harbour and even it faces the Bay of Bengal and Southeast Asia. You can see Bay of Bengal here. Trincomalee harbour faces the Bay of Bengal and Southeast Asia. Next importance is it is a natural harbour, as I told you earlier, and even it protrudes into the island. It protrudes into the land, so ships could be protected from dangerous cyclones. Next important is protrudes into the land. See how does it protrude into the land. Next one, at that time English were fighting with French in the Indian Ocean. So Trincomalee harbour was strategically important in their naval battles. English were fighting in the Indian Ocean against the French at that time, so Trincomalee harbour was important for their naval battles. Next reason is importance in trade activities. In Sri Lanka, cinnamon and other spices were in very high quality. So, as the other European nations, English also wanted to obtain those high quality cinnamon and other spices from Sri Lanka. First importance in trade activities is high quality cinnamon and other spices in Sri Lanka. Cinnamon, pepper, clove and cardamom. Not only cinnamon and other spices, there were many important trade items like elephants, pearl and gems in Sri Lanka. And even British, they had opportunity to build a market in Sri Lanka for the goods produced by the British. They could sell British productions in Sri Lanka. Now let's see the relationships that existed between the English and the Canadian Kingdom before year 1796. When the British arrived in Asia, the coastal areas of Sri Lanka were under the rule of Dutch. The Canadian Kingdom existed as a separate and independent state. There were controversies between Dutch and the Canadian kings. So, the rulers of the kingdom sought the support of the English to drive the Dutch from this country. There were several diplomatic representations between the Canadian Kingdom and the English. British representatives came to meet Canadian kings. Let's see who came to meet Canadian kings and who were the kings. First, in 1762, John Pybus visited King Kirti Rajasingha. And in 1782, Hugh Boyd visited King Rajadhirajasingha. In 1795, Robert Andrews visited the same king, King Rajadhirajasingha. As English maintained a friendly relationship with Dutch at the initial period, the first two meetings were not successful as English didn't like to fight against the Dutch. But the last meeting was successful as the English sought the support of the king to capture the Dutch forts. King also had made arrangements to send his troops to assist the English, but English did not need the king's support because capturing the Dutch forts was not as difficult as they thought. Holland. Holland is the motherland of Dutch. After the French Revolution, because of the French Revolution, France invaded Holland and captured the power of Holland. Q letter. What is Q letter? France captured Holland. At that time, the coastal areas of Sri Lanka were under the rule of Dutch. Then the Dutch or the Holland was under the France. English thought France will capture the areas of Sri Lanka also, because Dutch were under France. Then English feared about that, and they got Prince William to sign a letter granting to the English the coastal areas of Sri Lanka that were under the Dutch rule. This letter was written at the Kew Palace in England, so it is called Kew letter. But the Dutch governor Van did not like to act according to the letter. He didn't agree to act according to that letter. So the English decided to take military action. Because of that, as a result of it, the Frederick Fort in Trincomalee was captured by British on 26th August 1795. After that, English captured the forts in Jaffna, Mannar, Kalpitiya and Colombo respectively. By February 1796, all the coastal areas of this country, which had been under Dutch rule, had been brought under the rule of the English East India Company. Significant stages of the British rule in coastal areas. First one is rule under East India Company from 1796 to 1798. Next, dual control from 1798 to 1802, and rule under British Crown from 1802 onwards. The military expenses to capture the coastal areas of this country were spent by English East India Company. So it continued ruling this country to cover their expenses and boost their income. Then those officers of that company, they took steps to collect more taxes from the coastal areas. At that time, the collection of taxes was done by a group of officers called Omilda. They were brought from Madras. Then the people in coastal areas, they were not happy about this, and they started a riot against the English in 1797. Let's see what are the reasons for this riot. First one is imposing of several new taxes by English East India Company. What are these new taxes? Tax on coconut trees, tax on salt, tax on fish, tax on tobacco, and removal of local officers from collecting taxes and employing Omilda. As I mentioned earlier, they were brought from Madras. Next reason is having to pay taxes in cash. They paid taxes earlier in goods, thereby causing people to terribly suffer because the use of currency. It was not popular among the people. So, the last reason is having to pay taxes in cash instead of the traditional method of paying taxes in goods. So, to overcome from this problem, English appointed a commission called Murren Commission. It was headed by Colonel Muran. This commission recommended a number of proposals to bring the civil life in the coastal areas to normality. There, they explained the reason for this situation as the same officers were engaging in trade activities and also in administration. So, they recommended to separate those two. That means the trade and administration should be handled by separate groups of officers. So the dual control started. There, the trade activities were handled by English Trade Company and the political affairs were handled by British government. So, the trade company was allowed to continue to engage in trade activities and to collect revenue. A governor named Sir Frederick North was appointed in 1798 to handle the administrative and military affairs. When the dual control was in effect, there formed two groups of officers as the officers of the governor and officers of the trade company. However, the governor did not receive the cooperation from the trade company officers. So, this led to the deterioration of the administration and the dual control system became a failure. So, the coastal areas became a colony of the Crown. As the dual control failed, the British government wanted to handle all the affairs of this country. The authority of the trade company was terminated in 1802. So, the full administration of the coastal areas was undertaken by the British government. King was the head of the British government and the crown symbolizes the king. So, such ruling system was called a colony of the crown. What did we learn from this lesson? Can you remember? Yes, very good. We learned reasons for the arrival of British in Sri Lanka, relationship between British and Canadian Kingdom, about Q letter, and the stages of the British rule in coastal areas. Now you can answer these questions. First one is, write the names of the British representatives who came Sri Lanka to meet Canadian kings. What is Q letter? What is dual control? And what is the recommendation of the Muran Commission? Okay children, let's meet from a new lesson. Till then, goodbye.